Welcome to another episode of Explained by AI. You're probably getting ready for Christmas right now, but have you ever stopped to think about how this holiday might be subtly shaping our society? Maybe even in ways we don't realize. Today, we're diving into the intriguing idea that Christmas, as much as we love it, could be a tool for social control.
That might sound a bit unsettling at first, but when we peel back the layers of history and tradition, we start to see how Christmas has evolved and how that evolution aligns with the interests of those in power. Let's start with the origins of Christmas.
Most people think of it as a Christian holiday celebrating the birth of Jesus. Is that where it all began?
Yes. But the early celebrations were far more modest and community-oriented than the spectacle we see today. There was a focus on spiritual reflection and sharing with those less fortunate, values that ironically often challenge the existing power structures.
So how do we go from simple gatherings to the massive commercialized holiday we know today?
The transformation was gradual, and it's closely tied to shifts in power throughout history. When the Roman Empire adopted Christianity, they shrewdly blended pagan traditions like Saturnalia into Christmas celebrations. It helped consolidate their control by creating a sense of unity and discouraging dissent.
It sounds like they recognize the power of holidays to influence people's behavior.
Absolutely. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, and we see the rise of capitalism having a profound impact on Christmas. Suddenly, it's not just about religious observance or community gatherings. It's about buying and selling, about creating a market for new products and desires.
This is where figures like Santa Claus and the whole gift-giving frenzy come into play, right?
Precisely. Think about the iconic image of Santa, created by illustrators like Thomas Nast, and how companies like Coca-Cola used him to associate Christmas with their products. It's brilliant marketing, but it also shifted the focus away from the original meaning of the holiday.
So while everyone's busy shopping and decorating, they're less likely to notice or challenge what's happening in the wider world.
It's a subtle form of distraction. While we're caught up in the consumerist whirlwind of Christmas, bigger issues like wealth inequality, political corruption, or even just the simple act of questioning the status quo tend to fade into the background.
And this pressure to buy the perfect gifts, to keep up with the latest trends, it keeps people locked in a cycle that benefits certain groups, doesn't it?
The cycle of working, spending, and going into debt is incredibly profitable for financial institutions, many of which are controlled by the very people who benefit from maintaining the existing power structures.
It's like we're being encouraged to participate in a system that ultimately works against our own interests.
And it's not just about the financial burden. The constant barrage of advertising during the Christmas season promotes a lifestyle that's often unattainable for the average person. Luxury goods, extravagant vacations, the perfect home. These images create a sense of inadequacy and fuel a desire for things we may not even truly need or want.
So instead of focusing on what truly matters, spending time with loved ones, reflecting on the year, appreciating the simple things, we're bombarded with messages about what we supposedly lack, which keeps us striving for more, spending more, and working more.
It's a brilliant system for those at the top. It keeps people preoccupied, dissatisfied, and trapped in a cycle of consumption that ultimately reinforces their control. It's a cycle that keeps the wheels of the economic machine turning, even if it means perpetuating inequalities. And it's not just about money. There's also a cultural aspect to this that's worth exploring. Think about how Christmas has become a global phenomenon.
It seems like everywhere you go in the world, you see Christmas decorations, hear Christmas music, even if it's not a traditionally Christian country.
That widespread adoption of Christmas, often fueled by Hollywood movies and Western media, can lead to a subtle erosion of local traditions and a consolidation of cultural power in the hands of Western elites.
So it's not just about controlling our wallets, but also shaping our cultural values and perceptions.
Exactly. The way Christmas is portrayed in movies, music, and advertising sets a global standard for how the holiday should be celebrated. It promotes a specific set of values, often tied to consumerism and individualism, that may not align with the values of other cultures.
It's like a subtle form of cultural imperialism, spreading a particular worldview under the guise of holiday cheer.
And this cultural dominance reinforces the soft power of Western nations, particularly the United States. It subtly promotes their economic interests, their consumer habits, even their political ideologies.
So by embracing a standardized, commercialized version of Christmas, we're inadvertently contributing to a system that may be undermining cultural diversity and local traditions around the world.
That's a key point. And when you add the economic incentives to this cultural influence, it creates a powerful force that's hard to resist. Large corporations benefit immensely from this homogenized global market, and they have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo.
So it's not just about individual choices or family traditions. It's about recognizing the larger systems at play, the ways in which Christmas has been shaped and manipulated to serve certain interests.
And it's worth considering the psychological impact of all this. Think about the idealized image of family harmony. That's so pervasive during the Christmas season. Those heartwarming commercials, with everyone gathered around the perfectly decorated tree, smiling and laughing.
Those images are everywhere, and they set a high bar for how Christmas should feel. But for many people, the reality is much more complex.
Exactly. The pressure to create this perfect Christmas experience can actually discourage people from addressing deeper issues, both within their families and in society as a whole. It's easier to put on a happy face and pretend everything's fine than to have difficult conversations about the things that are causing pain or division.
So we're so focused on maintaining this facade of holiday bliss that we avoid dealing with the things that truly matter.
It's a subtle form of social control, a way of keeping people emotionally pacified and preventing them from rocking the boat. And speaking of subtle forms of control, let's talk about Santa Claus.
Wait, you're going to tell me that jolly old Saint Nick is part of some grand scheme?
Well, think about the message Santa embodies. He rewards good behavior and punishes bad behavior, a concept that subtly reinforces the idea of a higher power controlling our lives, rewarding obedience and punishing dissent.
It's like he's a symbol of the existing power structure, rewarding those who conform and punishing those who don't. And this message is ingrained in children from a very young age.
It's a powerful way to shape people's beliefs and behaviors without them even realizing it. And this ties back to the broader idea of Christmas as a tool for social control. It's not just about buying presents or decorating trees. It's about the subtle messages embedded in the traditions, the imagery, the narratives that surround the holiday.
It's about the ways in which Christmas can be used to promote conformity, discourage critical thinking, and ultimately maintain the status quo. But this is a global holiday, celebrated all over the world. How does that fit into this narrative?
That's where the economic and political machine comes into play. Christmas is a cornerstone of the global economy, with billions upon billions spent every year. And who benefits most from all that spending? The corporations, the financial institutions, the very entities that have a vested interest in maintaining the current system.
And many of those corporations are owned or controlled by the world's wealthiest individuals and families, who exert enormous influence over political systems and global markets.
It's a self-perpetuating cycle. We're encouraged to participate in the system through advertising, social pressure, and even government policies that promote holiday spending as a way to boost economic growth.
So we're all caught up in this web, whether we realize it or not. And the holiday season, with all its emphasis on consumption and conformity, plays a key role in reinforcing that web. But there's a darker side to all this that we often overlook.
Many of the products we buy during Christmas, especially electronics, toys, and clothing, are manufactured in developing countries under conditions that many would consider exploitative.
So while we're here enjoying our holiday feasts and opening presents, people in other parts of the world are struggling to make ends meet, producing the very goods that fuel our Christmas celebrations.
It's a stark reality that highlights how Christmas can perpetuate global inequalities while boosting the profits of those at the top. And it raises some uncomfortable questions about our role in this system.
It seems like there are layers upon layers to this. Ethical considerations, cultural impacts, economic disparities. It's a lot to unpack. But we're running a bit short on time for this segment. Perhaps we can delve further into these complexities in the next part of our deep dive.
It's a complex web indeed, with threads connecting economics, culture, psychology, and even global politics.
We've covered a lot of ground so far. We've explored the historical evolution of Christmas, how it's become intertwined with consumerism and capitalism, and how this can serve the interests of those in power. We've also touched on the cultural and psychological implications, the subtle ways Christmas can shape our values and behaviors.
But it's not all doom and gloom. The point isn't to make everyone feel bad about celebrating Christmas, or to suggest that we should abandon the holiday altogether.
Right. It's about becoming more aware of the forces at play, the subtle messages we're constantly bombarded with, and the choices we make, both individually and collectively. It's about recognizing the power of Christmas, not just as a holiday, but as a cultural phenomenon that shapes our world in profound ways.
And once we understand that power, we can start to reclaim it, to make more conscious choices about how we celebrate and what values we want to prioritize during the holiday season.
So what does that look like in practice? Are there things we could do differently to shift the focus away from consumerism? Yeah. And towards something more meaningful?
Absolutely. It starts with small changes. Instead of buying into the frenzy of gift giving, focus on experiences, on spending quality time with loved ones, on creating memories that don't revolve around material possessions.
That's a great idea. It takes the pressure off finding the perfect gift and shifts the focus to something more lasting and fulfilling. What about the ethical concerns we discussed earlier? The exploitative labor practices behind many of the products we buy.
That's where conscious consumerism comes in. Do your research. Support companies that treat their workers fairly. And prioritize sustainability, even if you can't afford to buy everything ethically sourced. Making even a few conscious choices can make a difference.
It's about voting with our dollars, supporting businesses that align with our values. And what about the cultural homogenization we talked about? The way Western culture often dominates the global Christmas experience.
It's important to be mindful of that and to appreciate the diversity of traditions around the world. Explore how other cultures celebrate the holidays, learn about their customs, their foods, their music. It's a way to broaden our horizons and challenge the idea of a single right way to celebrate Christmas.
It's about embracing the richness and diversity of human culture, rather than conforming to a standardized, commercialized version of the holiday.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of conversation. Talk to your friends and family about these issues. Share your thoughts and insights. The more we raise awareness, the more likely we are to create meaningful change.
So it's not about boycotting Christmas or turning into a Scrooge. It's about being more thoughtful, more intentional, more aware of the choices we make and the impact those choices have.
It's about reclaiming the spirit of the holiday, the spirit of generosity, compassion, and connection. It's about using Christmas as an opportunity to reflect on our values and to create a world that's a little bit brighter, a little bit fairer, a little bit more just...
That's a powerful message to end on. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. It's been an eye-opening and thought-provoking conversation.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive is giving you a new perspective on the holiday season. As you enjoy the festivities, remember that knowledge is power. By understanding the forces at play, we can make more conscious choices that align with our values, challenge the status quo, embrace the true spirit of the season, and create a Christmas that is meaningful and authentic for you. Do you have any topic that you would like to have explained? Drop it in the comments.